So if you remember last time, we had the car set at 2000 revs, pulling on the choke lever to hold the throttles open. The challenge there though is that as we pull this way on the lever, that's actually opposite to the way that the main throttle lever pulls on the levers here. So what we're going to do is connect the accelerator cable. We'll start it up again. We'll hold it this time, pulling the correct way, the same way that the accelerator cable pulls. See if we can get it to 2000 revs, and then we're going to balance these carburetors up so that they're all pulling roughly the same airflow. So we know then that under load we've got the same airflow going through. Once we've got that, we'll adjust the idle back down to about 850 RPM, check the timing, and what I'm going to do is use the vacuum method, see my other video, to check and get the best possible range of running based on the maximum amount of vacuum that it's pulling. So about half an hour later, managed to put the plenum back on, tidied up some of the engine, so we're ready to move on to put the interior back in the car. Interior then, I'm hoping will take probably about an hour to put back into the car, and then we can think about all the final touches. So after a long journey and a couple of months of time, the interior's back in. The engine's put back together again. It's had a mild tune. So only thing left to do now is put the bonnet back on. And once the bonnet's back on, we can wheel it out and start it up and think about giving it a drive. So it's a few weeks later after fitting the interior to the TR6 and starting the car up, and the car didn't run right. It ran quite lumpy on tick over and on the choke especially. Once it had warmed up, it was okay. So I've spent the last few weeks just really trying to do some diagnostics and research, and in order to make some changes to get the car running right. So first up, I was looking at the injectors. And looking through these, what I did is I've set up an airline at 50 psi, which is the pressure that these should be opening, and put the airline on the end of the injector, and was looking for the end to blow air so slightly, just to let a bit of what would be fuel through. And the good news is 5 of them did. But the even better news is this one didn't. At 50 psi, the end wasn't opening at all. In fact, it was still sealed. So what I've done is sourced a new injector in order to replace this one, and I'm hoping that might explain my slightly rough running. So we got 5 new injectors. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. The next thing, in order to get the car running right, is I've sourced myself some of the CP throttle bodies. And this comes with 2 advantages. Well, the first is we have a slightly wider opening on the end of the throttle bodies, so the airflow is supposed to be a little bit better for the CP setup. But the more important change is we're changing the underslung back counterbalance shaft of the CR version to this, which is a single actuating shaft for the CP version. And what that means is all 3 throttles are going to be activated off this shaft with link arms, and what that means is as the throttle cable pulls this, all 3 can be adjusted to move together, as opposed to the CR version where the cable pulls on the end of the first throttle body and it relies on a linkage between the second and the third one in order to get the balance right. Why that's significant is when the choke is operated, the lever will also be pushing in the same way, so it'll be pushing the throttles open in the same direction, as opposed to the CR version where the throttle cable pulls one way and the choke cable pulls the opposite way, rotating the lever the other way. So any wear in the shafts or the CR setup makes the idle difficult to set. So I'm hoping the idle and the choke will be easier to set with this, and therefore alleviate the rough running. And one other change, I'm going to implement one of these, which is a single choke cable rather than the twin one, and this comes with a nice little bracket so that you can set up a second cable coming off the choke actuation to go and activate the metering unit, so therefore making the 2 independently adjustable, but also meaning you've got a single choke cable set up instead of a twin one. So we're going to be setting this up as part of the installation as well. I've also done a little bit of research, and because of the hybrid nature of what my engine now is, the metering unit is probably not going to be set well for it. So the best thing I can do is get the car rolling around tuned and get the car metering unit set up for this particular engine and setup. So I've got the car booked in for a rolling road tune, and hopefully that will be it. The good news though is that the potential for this engine setup is already evident. With a CP cam in it, being able to take it for a drive around the to the petrol station and back 5-10 miles, it clearly picks up better, it clearly revs better. So I'm really looking forward to getting these last few niggles sorted, and then be able to give you a proper kind of turn of events as to how it's running. Right then, so let's get this CP setup fitted. Right, so after a bit of messing about and a lot of adjustment, we've got our CP counterbalance shaft put in place. So as that operates now, the throttle operates here through the throttle cable. All three throttles will open. So that should give us a much better throttle action. And also we've fitted the single throttle cable conversion, so we've got a single throttle cable coming in here, and as that operates the cam, it opens the throttle, but also it pulls on this wire here, and that will pull on the metering unit here. So just to demonstrate, as I pull on the choke, that operates that, so that should work very nicely. And because the choke is pulling on this counterbalance shaft in the same way that the throttle cable pulls on that, it should mean that all three throttles are opening on the choke and the throttle in exactly the same way with the same adjustment, so should make for a much better idle. So next thing to do then is to try and fire it up, bleed the injectors, and then we can try and balance the throttle bodies. finally there's the throttles all installed. Got some new connecting rods, got a single cable choke and metering unit extension put on place. So now, having put it all together, just roughly balance the throttles, so we're good to put it all back together.
Now the engine's all rebuilt and put back together again. Time for a test drive, so I've brought the car out for a bit of a run. Pulled over just to slightly make some little adjustments to the idle. It's running really well.
Taken some fettling to get it right, but now it runs well. Can you notice the difference? Yeah, you can. So does it drive perfectly? No. I think the fueling is still not quite right, despite having a CP metering unit for a CP cam. It's going to need tuning for this car, for this engine, compression and so on. So the car's booked in for a rolling road in a few weeks' time in order to have the metering unit set to the car, and I'm hoping that will make the difference and really sort the car out properly. But the early signs are there. Car's a lot more sprightly off the line. It certainly accelerates quicker, and it revs out better as well. Seems to pull all the way around to 5,000–6,000 revs. There's the CR camshaft. It used to wind up a little bit and only really come on song about 3,000 to 5,000 revs. So it's definitely a more sprightly, fun car to drive now. Going through the gears cleanly, smoothly, and accelerating nicely. Feel the difference in the camshaft. This one definitely wants to rev a lot more. You can feel that there's less torque available, particularly low down. But actually in a British sports car, the ability to rev it out is a feature I actually quite like. So to summarise then on this first test drive, CR engine, CP cam, CP metering unit, throttle bodies, the alleged 125 to 150 brake horsepower conversion. Well, I've no doubt I'm not going to get 150 horsepower,
but it's certainly a very different car to drive. And I think the attributes of this cam in this engine actually make it a better experience overall, in my opinion, obviously. Next thing to do then is get it on the rolling road, get the metering unit finely tuned, and then we can go for a final drive to see what difference it's made. Of course, I should also get some rolling road data to see what power it's putting out. That'll be quite interesting to see. And of course, we can assess what the cost is and if it's all been worth it. So in that final video, I'll be sharing my conclusions and summary. So for now, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for all your comments. See you on the next video.